Seriously, lean in, because this is the kind of stuff they make movies about, only, like, way messier and with less of a happy ending for anyone but me. Mostly me. I'm Clara, by the way, and I'm 28, and yeah, I lied about my little brother touching me. Because he was the favorite and I hated him for it. There, I said it. It's out there. And honestly? I don't regret it. Not one bit. It all started, like most of my problems, with Michael. He was my little brother, barely a year younger, but you'd think he was some kind of golden child sent from the heavens to bless our pathetic little family. From the minute he popped out, it was all Michael this and Michael that. He got the new toys, the bigger room, the endless praise for literally just existing. Me? I was just Clara. The older sister who was supposed to be responsible, the one who had to set the example, the one who always had to understand. Understand what? That he was better than me? Please. Mom and Dad ate it up. He was always so sweet, so innocent, so good. He'd bring home perfect grades, help out without being asked, and give these big, teary-eyed speeches about how much he loved us. Gag me with a spoon. I saw right through it, even when I was, like, 7. He was a master manipulator, a tiny little con artist with a cherubic face. And I hated him for it. I hated how they looked at him, like he was the sun, moon, and stars wrapped up in a little boy package. And how they looked at me, like I was just the other one. The difficult one. The one who always had an attitude. I remember this one time, I was maybe 10, and Michael, the little angel, accidentally broke my favorite doll. It wasn't accidental, obviously. He knew what he was doing. He'd been eyeing that doll for weeks, probably jealous because it was mine and not his. I went ballistic, screaming, crying, the whole 9 yards. And what did Mom do? She hugged Michael, told him it was okay, and then gave me that look. You know, the one that says, "Why are you always making such a fuss?" It was always my fault, always my drama. Michael just stood there, all wide-eyed and innocent, while I got yelled at for having feelings. That's when I knew. I had to do something. Something big. Something that would make them finally see him for what he was, or at least, make them pay attention to me for once. The idea started simmering in my head for a while, like a little toxic stew. I was always the one getting into trouble, always the one with the attitude. Michael was the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. It was so unfair. I'd try to tell my friends at school, but they just didn't get it. They all had normal siblings, or they were the golden child. Between us, I wanted to scream every time someone said, "Oh, but Michael seems so sweet." Sweet? He was a demon in a sweater vest, I swear. Life at home was a constant battle for attention, for crumbs of affection. If I got a B, it was a lecture about not trying hard enough. If Michael got an A, it was a parade. If I wanted to go out with my friends, it was a 20-question interrogation. Michael just had to blink and he was off to the movies. It was infuriating. I started feeling invisible, like a ghost haunting my own house. And the more invisible I felt, the more desperate I became. I was maybe 12, and Michael was 11. We were always squabbling, little annoying kid fights, you know? But this one day, we were in the living room, and he was being particularly obnoxious. He kept snatching the TV remote, changing channels in the middle of my show, then giggling like it was the funniest thing in the world. I told him to stop over and over, but he just wouldn't. He knew it annoyed me, and that's why he kept doing it. He was always pushing my buttons, always trying to get a rise out of me. It was his favorite pastime, besides charming our parents. Then something just snapped. I don't know. It was like all those years of being ignored, of being second best, of watching him get everything, it just bubbled up. He was sitting on the couch, laughing, and I just saw red. He reached out to snatch the remote again, and his hand brushed my arm. It was nothing. Just a light touch, an accident. But in that split second, a crazy thought popped into my head. A terrible, brilliant idea. I started crying. Not just little sniffles, but big, heaving sobs. The kind that make your throat ache and your eyes sting. Michael, for once, looked a little scared. He stopped laughing. "What's wrong?" he asked, all innocent-like. "Little punk." I didn't say anything, just kept crying, making sure it was loud enough for Mom to hear from the kitchen. She came rushing in, all frantic. "Clara, what happened?" "What's wrong?" I just pointed at Michael, still sobbing. He looked confused, then terrified. He touched me," I choked out, making my voice sound as small and vulnerable as possible. My mom looked at Michael, then at me, then back at him. Her eyes got wide. Michael started stammering, "No. I didn't. I just." I touched her arm to get the remote. But by then, I was really laying it on thick. "He touched me here," I whispered, pointing vaguely at my chest, letting my tears do all the talking. My mom gasped. The next few hours were a whirlwind. Mom pulled me into the kitchen, away from Michael. She was asking me all these questions, but I just kept crying and shaking my head, making it seem worse than it was. I made sure to be vague, to let her imagination fill in the blanks. I didn't want to say anything too specific, just enough to plant the seed of doubt, the seed of horror. I kept saying, "He touched me," over and over, letting the tears stream down my face. She kept hugging me, saying, "Oh, my poor baby." Finally, I was getting the attention. And it felt good. Horrible, I know, but good. Michael was banished to his room. Dad came home, and Mom told him everything, her voice hushed and serious. I could hear their muffled voices from my room, Mom sounding so distraught, Dad sounding so angry. Angry at Michael. It was glorious. Later, Dad came into my room, sat on my bed, and just held me. He didn't ask questions, he just kept saying, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We'll make sure he never hurts you again. Never hurts me again." That's what I wanted. I wanted them to protect me, for once. Not him. Things changed after that. Drastically. Michael was suddenly the outsider. He had to eat dinner in his room for a while, and then when he was allowed back at the table, no one talked to him. He wasn't allowed near me. He had to go to therapy, and Mom and Dad started watching him like a hawk. Every little thing he did, they scrutinized. If he even looked in my direction, they'd glare at him. It was amazing. I finally had the upper hand. I loved it. I really did. I didn't have to compete for attention anymore. I was the fragile one, the victim, the one who needed to be protected. Mom bought me new clothes, Dad took me out for ice cream almost every day, and they let me do whatever I wanted. My grades even slipped a bit, but they just said, "It's okay, honey, you've been through a lot." Like, yeah, I had. I'd been through years of being the invisible sister. This was my time to shine. Michael, on the other hand, was a shell of his former self. He went from being this happy, bubbly kid to quiet and withdrawn. His grades plummeted. He lost all his friends because he wasn't allowed to go anywhere. He'd try to talk to me sometimes, to explain, to apologize for whatever it was he thought he did, but I'd just turn away or pretend to be scared. I'd make sure Mom or Dad were within earshot, and then I'd whisper, "Don't touch me," and they'd instantly jump in and scold him. It was a perfect system. I knew what I was doing was wrong, deep down. There were these tiny, fleeting moments, usually in the dead of night, when I'd feel a prickle of something that might have been guilt. But then I'd remember all the times he'd smirked at me, all the times Mom praised him for something stupid, all the times I felt like I didn't matter. And the prickle would go away. He deserved it. He deserved to feel what I had felt for years. He deserved to be the bad guy for once. Years passed, and Michael never really recovered. He became this really quiet, socially awkward guy. He barely spoke to anyone, especially girls. Mom and Dad still treated him differently, though not as overtly as they did in the beginning. They still loved him, I guess, but there was always this underlying tension, this unspoken accusation hanging in the air. Like they were always waiting for him to do something wrong again. It was a silent punishment, and it was perfect. I, on the other hand, flourished. I was the confident, outgoing one. I got into a good college, had tons of friends, dated around. I was finally the center of attention, the one everyone admired. I even managed to convince myself that I was a good person, that everything I'd done was justified. After all, I'd suffered, hadn't I? I deserved to be happy. When I met Mark, it was like a dream. He was a few years older, worked at some vague job in finance, and had this calm, steady presence that I found incredibly comforting. He was the too nice guy personified. He never argued, always agreed with me, and doted on me like I was the most precious thing in the world. He was everything Michael wasn't. He was attentive, he listened to my every word, and he never, ever made me feel like I was second best. We moved in together pretty quickly. Our little apartment was cozy, and it felt like my own space, far away from all the family drama. Mark was a good provider. He covered most of the rent and bills, and I just put in what I could from my job. My job, you ask? Oh, just working at the office, doing my thing. Nothing too exciting, but it paid the bills, mostly. Mark was a bit of a people pleaser, which was fine by me. It meant I usually got my way. He was always asking me what I wanted to do, where I wanted to eat, what movie I wanted to watch. It was refreshing after years of constantly battling for control with Michael. Sometimes, though, it felt like he had no opinions of his own. I'd try to get him to make a decision, to pick a restaurant, and he'd just say, "Whatever you want, babe." It was sweet, but sometimes I just wanted him to decide. But then I'd remember how annoying it was when Michael always wanted to be in charge, and I'd just settle for picking the restaurant myself. It was fine. I liked being in charge. Our relationship was good, mostly. We had our little routines. Weekends were for brunch, then maybe a walk in the park or going to see a movie. Mark was pretty chill. He didn't have many hobbies outside of what we did together, which was great. It meant he was always available for me. He'd occasionally mention wanting to get into, like, woodworking or something, and I'd just shrug and say, "Oh, that sounds complicated." He'd usually drop it. I didn't want him spending all his time in a dusty garage when he could be with me. The problems, when they popped up, were usually small. Like, if I'd ask him where he was going, he'd just say out. And I'd be like, "Out where? With who?" I mean, I just wanted to know, right? But then if he asked me where I was going, I'd get all defensive. "Why do you need to know? Do you not trust me?" It was totally different. I was just asking because I cared. He was asking because he was being nosy. Totally different. Sometimes, he'd get upset about little things, like if I borrowed some money from his wallet for a new dress. Or if I scrolled through his phone while he was in the shower. I mean, what's the big deal? I wasn't looking for anything, just being curious. But he'd get this really hurt look on his face, and then I'd have to pull out the tears. Works every time. I'd just start crying, and say something like, "I just feel so misunderstood. I just wanted to feel close to you, and now you're making me feel like a criminal." And then he'd feel bad, and he'd apologize, and everything would be fine. It was easy. We even went to a few of his work parties, and I'd be all smiles and charming, laughing at all his boss's jokes. But then on the way home, I'd be like, "Did you see how that one woman was looking at you?" Honestly, some people have no shame. And he'd try to defend her, saying she was just being friendly, and I'd just roll my eyes. "Whatever you say, honey." Just saying. It was important to keep him on his toes, you know? One time, he brought up something from a few months ago, about how I'd promised to help him pay for his car repairs. I totally had, but then something else came up, and I needed my money for other things. He was like, "You said you'd help me out, Clara. I'm really struggling with this." And I just looked at him, all innocent, and said, I did? Oh, honey, I don't remember that at all. Are you sure you're not mixing me up with someone else? And he just got this confused look on his face, like he was trying to figure out if he was crazy. Classic gaslighting, I know. But it worked. He dropped it. He also had this friend, Sarah, who he'd known since college. She was fine. But every time he hung out with her, I'd suddenly get super worried about him. Are you sure she's a good influence? She seems a little wild. He'd always say, Clara, she's just a friend. We've been friends for years. But I'd keep going. I'm just worried about you, honey. I don't want anyone taking advantage of you. It wasn't jealousy, obviously. Just concern. Pure, unadulterated concern. Sometimes, he'd try to bring up how I was being unfair, or how he felt like I was controlling. And I'd just give him the "you're being dramatic" line. It's not that serious, Mark. Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? Or, if that didn't work, I'd pull out the big guns. I had this one story from when I was a kid, about how my parents always favored Michael and how it made me feel worthless. I'd embellish it a little, make it sound even more tragic. And he'd immediately feel bad, and drop the subject, and hug me, and tell me how sorry he was that I'd had such a hard childhood. Weaponized vulnerability, baby. Works every time. I was constantly scorekeeping, too. If he forgot to take out the trash, I'd remember it. And then, a week later, if I forgot to do something, I'd bring up his trash transgression. Well, at least I remembered to do X, unlike you who forgot to take out the trash last week. It was a perfectly valid point. He needed to remember his mistakes, you know? One day, Michael called me. I hadn't really talked to him in years, not beyond the obligatory holiday phone call. He sounded different. More confident. He said he was doing really well, had a good job, was even dating someone. I just grunted. I wasn't interested. I didn't want to hear about his perfect life. But then he said he wanted to talk, to clear the air. He said he finally understood what had happened all those years ago, and he wanted to apologize for something. I don't even know what. Being born, probably. I scoffed. Apologize? For what, Michael? For everything you put me through? I said, making sure my voice dripped with resentment. He paused. Clara, I know. I know I was a pain as a kid. And I'm sorry for that. But you know that thing you said, about me touching you? That wasn't true. You know it wasn't. My heart hammered in my chest. He was finally bringing it up. After all these years. What are you talking about, Michael? How dare you? You think I would lie about something like that? After everything I went through? I yelled into the phone, my voice rising in a carefully calibrated crescendo of indignation. I could feel the old anger bubbling up. How dare he try to rewrite history? How dare he try to make me the liar? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, his voice strangely calm, Clara, I've been in therapy. A lot of therapy. And I've finally come to terms with what happened. And I'm not saying you intentionally did it to hurt me then. But it wasn't true. And it ruined my life. I laughed. A bitter, cold laugh. Oh, it ruined your life? What about my life, Michael? What about all those years of being invisible? Of being second best? You think that was easy for me? I was practically screaming now. He was making me out to be the bad guy, again. It was always me. Clara, he said, his voice still unnervingly steady. I've tried to move past it. But I can't have a relationship with you, with this lie hanging over us. I just needed you to acknowledge it. Just once. Acknowledge it? Acknowledge what? That I was a manipulative liar? Never. You want me to acknowledge your delusion, Michael? Is that it? You need me to say that I lied so you can feel better about yourself? Well, guess what, little brother, it's not happening. You want to blame someone, blame yourself for being such a pain in the butt. I was a child. I was reacting to you. I slammed the phone down before he could say another word. The audacity of that boy. Coming back after all these years, trying to twist the knife. No apologies from me. Not now, not ever. That conversation with Michael just festered inside me. It made me irritable, defensive. I started picking fights with Mark over little things. He'd leave a damp towel on the bed, and I'd turn it into a full-blown argument about how he never respected my space. He'd try to comfort me, but I'd just push him away. You don't understand, Mark. No one understands what I'd been through. I'd throw Michael into every argument, even when it had nothing to do with him. You're just like my brother. Always blaming me for everything. Mark, bless his too nice guy heart, just kept trying. He bought me flowers, cooked my favorite meals, planned little date nights. But I was just so wound up. I felt like everyone was against me, trying to make me feel bad. Especially Michael. One evening, Mark came home from work, looking really happy. He'd gotten a promotion, a big one, with a significant raise. He was so excited, talking about how we could finally save up for a house, maybe even take that trip to Europe I always talked about. He was so proud, and he hugged me tight, swinging me around. For a second, I felt a flicker of something good. But then, the green-eyed monster, or maybe just the old, familiar resentment, started creeping in. A house? Europe? All because he got a promotion? What about me? What about all my hard work? It felt unfair. He was always getting the good stuff, just like Michael. That's great, honey, I said, pulling away from his hug, trying to sound enthusiastic, but I knew it came out flat. So, you're going to be working even more now, huh? Guess I'll just be here by myself even more often. His smile faltered. What? No, Clara, it just means we'll be more comfortable. We can do more things together. Right, I scoffed. More things you want to do, probably. Like more of your boring work events. Or more time for you to hang out with Sarah, since you'll be making all this extra money and won't need me to contribute anymore. It was a low blow. I knew it. But I couldn't stop myself. He stared at me, his eyes wide. Clara, what are you talking about? Sarah? This has nothing to do with her. And how can you say that? I just got a promotion, I thought you'd be happy for me. Happy? I spat. Happy for what, Mark? Happy that you're just going to leave me behind? Happy that you'll have even more reasons to ignore me? My voice was rising, and I could feel the tears welling up, but this time, they were real tears of frustration and anger. I was so tired of everything always being about everyone else. He just stood there, looking completely defeated. I can't do this, Clara, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I can't keep doing this. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. Like nothing I do is ever enough. And now you're turning my success into a weapon against me. Oh, so I'm the problem now? I shrieked, finally letting the tears flow freely. It's always me, isn't it? Just like Michael. You're just like my parents. Always blaming me, always making me out to be the bad guy. I hate you. I hate all of you. I ran into the bedroom and slammed the door, burying my face in the pillow, sobbing. I expected him to come in, to apologize, to beg me to open the door, to tell me he loved me no matter what. That's what he always did. But he didn't. I heard him sigh, a long, tired sound. Then, silence. The silence was deafening. I waited. And waited. Finally, I crept out of the bedroom, my eyes red and puffy, expecting to see him pacing, looking remorseful. But the living room was empty. His keys were gone. My heart clenched. He'd never just left before. Not like this. I called him over and over, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted, a flurry of angry messages, then increasingly desperate ones. Where are you? Come home. You can't just leave me. No reply. Days turned into a week. He wasn't coming back. He had just disappeared. Like a ghost. His parents called me, sounding concerned, asking if I knew where he was. I just played the part of the distraught girlfriend, crying and saying I had no idea, that he'd just left without a word. They were sympathetic, but I could hear the subtle shift in their tone, the hint of suspicion. They probably thought I'd done something to him. Bitches. Then, the final blow. I got a notice from the landlord. Mark had given notice, and he'd paid his portion of the rent for the next month, but that was it. I was on the hook for the rest. All of it. Suddenly, all those little expenses he'd covered, all those times I'd conveniently forgotten my wallet, all those car payments he'd made, it hit me. I was screwed. My job, which I had always just kind of winged, wasn't enough to cover everything. I was barely making ends meet as it was. I called my parents, hoping they'd offer some help. My mom listened to my tearful story about Mark leaving, about how he was such a jerk for abandoning me. But instead of sympathy, she sounded distant. Clara, honey, she said, her voice soft but firm, your father and I have been talking a lot about things lately. And Michael. Michael told us something that made us think differently about everything that happened. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice shaking. He told us you lied, she said, her voice breaking a little. About what happened when you were kids. He said it wasn't true. And he had proof, Clara. He showed us old journals, old messages he'd tried to send us over the years, things he'd told his therapist. It all made sense. He's lying. I shrieked into the phone. He's making it up. He's always hated me. We don't know what to believe anymore, Clara, she said, a world of sadness in her voice. But we need some space. We need to figure things out. And then she hung up. Space. That's what they said. Space. Like I had time for space. I had bills to pay. I was alone, completely alone. Mark was gone. My parents were gone. My brother, well, he was always gone, but now he was gone in a different way, the kind of gone that meant he had won. I had to move. I couldn't afford the apartment anymore. I ended up finding a tiny, dingy studio in a bad part of town. The kind of place where the walls are so thin you can hear your neighbor breathing. My job, which I always thought was so stable, started getting shaky. My boss, who used to be so lenient, started giving me the evil eye. I was late a lot, I was distracted, and I snapped at everyone. One day, she pulled me into her office. Clara, she said, her voice tight, your performance has been unacceptable. We're going to have to let you go. Just like that. Gone. My job. My apartment. My parents. My brother. My boyfriend. Everything. It all just evaporated. I ended up having to crash on a friend's couch for a while. Friend being a loose term, since she kept giving me these pitying looks. I hated it. I hated feeling like a charity case. I tried to reach out to other friends, but everyone was suddenly busy. Oh, Clara, I'd love to help, but I'm just so swamped. Right. Swamped with avoiding me, probably. I heard through the grapevine that Mark had moved to Phoenix and was already dating someone else. Someone normal and stable. Someone who probably didn't lie about their brother. And Michael? He was thriving. He got married, had a great job, looked happier than I'd ever seen him. The universe, or whatever you want to call it, had decided that he deserved to be happy, and I guess I didn't. I sit here now, in my tiny, depressing studio, surrounded by boxes I haven't bothered to unpack. The walls are still peeling. The light flickers. It's a mess, just like my life. I think about everything that happened, and sometimes, for a fleeting second, I wonder if I should have done things differently. If I should have just been nice. If I should have just told the truth. But then I shake my head. No. I don't regret it. I regret how it all turned out, sure. I regret that they found out. I regret that I'm the one sitting here in this dump. But I don't regret what I did. I was a kid. I was hurting. I was ignored. I was just trying to survive. They pushed me to it. All of them. Michael, my parents, even Mark, in his own way. They all made me who I am. And if they can't see that, if they can't understand what I went through, then that's their problem, not mine. I'm still Clara. And I'm still here. And I don't care anymore. Not about them. Not about any of them. They got what they deserved, leaving me like this. And I'll get by. Somehow. Even if I have to step on a few more people to do it. It's not my fault. It never was.